in studio. Hadn't been that long since we had Joe Dills on yesterday, running for the 65th Ohio representative seat. Man, this has become like the most expensive election, at least in terms of money thrown at it and influence thrown at it, that I've seen in a long time. Dillon Blevins is in studio. Apologies for saying you live in your parents' basement, Dillon. I know that's not the case. I was kind of sort of joking around because I've defaulted to Joe Dills. First off, Gene Schmidt's in the race. It's you, Gene, and Joe. So there's your three choices. And as from my perspective, it's just compared experience-wise and youth-wise, I just defaulted to Joe. I think he's got good. He can work a room. He's fairly dynamic, and he has less baggage. I mean, some baggage, but less than you and Gene. My perspective, and I'm entitled to my opinion,
sure.
So I withdraw my comment. I know you don't live in your parents' basement, so I apologize for that yesterday. Cheap shot, and I won't do it again. Now, back to you. How is it that you're a better candidate than Gene Schmidt and a better candidate than Joe Dills?
Well, first and foremost, I would say that wasn't even the most egregious thing you said. I think the thing that offended me the most was you said that I'm nice, but I'm not very capable. And I would say, politically speaking, I'm not very nice. I've never came to play nice in this political game. I have not been very nice with Joe Dills or Gene Schmidt. I think there's a lot of hypocrisy going on there. But the comment, I'm not very capable, I want to turn it on you because I've listened to your 3 interviews with Joe Dills, and I don't think you're capable of asking him a tough question.
Fair enough. You're entitled to your own conclusions. So there you have it.
Great. And, you'll continue to let little lies go through, like Joe Dills was single when he was on Ashley Madison, though we know now that in 2015, the second time he was on Ashley Madison, he was married. So do I care about Joe Dills' personal life and him picking up chicks? Absolutely not. But little lies like that he lets go, and you've been running out here, it makes me wonder if you're even doing research on the campaign. My address is public record, and as you said, you made an issue. So I didn't plan on coming back on the show. I thought we had a good conversation the first time, so I came back on to address these egregious comments that I'm sure came from Joe Dills' camp.
No, I didn't.
His minions,
No.
Because I would say
not the case.
long before any dark money was being spent in this campaign, which we know about $500,000 has been spent by Gene Schmidt.
Well, she hasn't spent it, according to Gene Schmidt. It has been spent by a PAC.
The Growth and Opportunity PAC, backed by
we
Larry
don't know
Householder.
who even runs it.
Larry Householder.
Do you know that?
It's not ran by Larry Householder.
Well,
but
you just said it was. See, now here we are in this this
Cleveland.com,
gray area.
Cincinnati Enquirer, Channel 12 have all covered that the PAC is ran by Larry Householder, not just me.
Well, I'm going to find out in the next segment
Brian, I want to
Wayne
mention
Gates, because Wayne Gates from the Brown County Press is going to join us on that very topic after you are finished here.
Yeah, the Growth and Opportunity PAC is highly related to Larry Householder, and he's trying to win his candidates in the 66th and the 65th, Gene Schmidt. And,
no, I don't disagree necessarily with your conclusion, because clearly it is a Gene Schmidt-focused campaign, and I am not a fan of Gene Schmidt. And, of course, with the hundreds of thousands of dollars of illegal campaign money that she got, or illegal funds she got donated to her, and the fact that she, dissed my executive producer before I even came over on this program more than 14 years ago, on multiple occasions, has just allowed me to draw my own conclusions, as I have done in this particular race, which I'm entitled to. I mean, I don't tell people who to vote for necessarily. I'm entitled to my own conclusions, but then again, I don't even have a dog in this fight because I can't vote in this race.
Well, there's one other side of the pony that I want to bring up here, because Channel 12, Channel 5, and everyone just had a big press conference where they covered dark money. But what hasn't been getting talked about is the Claremont County GOP, which is full of corruption. All the major news sources have been covering that, so I was a little disappointed because we've had a lot of candidates come through here who are endorsed by the Claremont GOP, and there's no tough questions. One of the things I would say is that's wrong with Joe Dills is he's endorsed by the Claremont County GOP, and he played the insider game to get that endorsement, buying everyone's lunches, painting the GOP headquarters last year, and being in the in club. Let me say just a couple points.
You got to endear yourself to the right people, and it's a whole
That's
idea.
not the right people. That's the problem.
Well, okay, and you can go ahead and elaborate on why you think they're corrupt. I don't know anything about the Claremont County GOP. I don't live there. I don't interact with those folks.
Well, this is
I do know some
talk
wonderful.
show, and this is a.
I do know some wonderful folks in the Republican Party in Claremont County.
Sure. So I would immediately say that it's not the right people. Actually, I was the only candidate, I believe, in all of Claremont County, definitely in my race, who did not seek their endorsement. I didn't want it. They're crooked.
In what way?
Well, the FBI is currently investigating the party chair, Greg Simpson, for making a $50,000 bribe to current state representative John Becker in exchange for an endorsement.
Really?
In 2018, Linda Fraley paid money, was not endorsed, paid money to have her name and picture put on the slate card that said she was endorsed. There is so much corruption. David Ewell, endorsed for Senate race 14, top of the card for the Claremont GOP, is currently serving probation for falsifying election forms.
Yeah, I talked to him about that. He was pretty straightforward on that. It was one of the, I think the only
I've heard his explanation. He really twisted it. What he did was he took a petition that was already signed by a circulator, took it, went ahead and used it himself, and had 5 additional people, and he likes to brag about the people that did sign it, which makes it even worse. He had David Painter sign it. They know how those circulations work. So they signed something that David wasn't circulating, and then he scribbled out a number. It's egregious. It's a small detail, but with politicians, when they get caught in the small stuff, there's usually bigger stuff. If they're willing to be corrupt on a little, look, I'm 28.
You've had your run-ins with the law, though, too.
Absolutely, and I don't pretend to be perfect. I've been running as a proud deplorable. I'm young. I've made mistakes, and that makes me who I am. I've never lied about any of it. But honestly, a lot of this, my run-ins with the law, all my charges were dismissed. But other people, when they get asked about their issues, they tend to lie. I've never lied. I'm a proud deplorable. I mentioned I'm not here to be nice. I'm not here to play games. I'm here to go to the Ohio House. I'm not a big fan of Larry Householder. I'm not a big fan of Mike No Spine DeWine. I want to pass gun legislation. I want to get education funding reform done. Listen, education funding reform was deemed, their funding methods were deemed unconstitutional in 96. I was 6 years old, okay? Jean Schmidt was already in the Ohio House. She got nothing done. Nothing's been done on that.
Nobody's done anything on that. That was a Supreme Court decision out of Ohio. And
John Becker, who's your current state representative for the 65th, has a master's degree with an emphasis in taxation. He says it everywhere. What did he get done in the House? He passed 0 bills. John Becker, 8 years in the position I'm fighting for. I'm not your picture-perfect candidate, but I will fight for these things. I have nothing to lose. I'm not bought by Columbus. I don't have Larry Householder peddling me $500,000, so I'll go to Columbus and say yes to everything. And I'm not bought by the Claremont County GOP swamp, which, Brian, I know you said you don't live in Claremont County, but I do, and it's a big topic of conversation in Claremont County, and it has been covered by all the major news sources that there's major corruption. The FBI has just launched an investigation into the party. What happens is you have a one-party system in Claremont County. It's Republican. So the slate card, the endorsement, you get endorsed, you get put on the slate card. It all but ensures you're going to be an elected official if you get endorsed. So it's breeded corruption. It's got people going and painting the headquarters, buying lunches. And I'm not, listen.
You guys, it's the second time you went back to that. Listen, if
that's the true story.
The corruption component, if the corruption component wasn't there, and your comments and the investigation, I'll just let stand because again, not certain of the details on that. I mean, we live in a big state, 88 counties. We got state issues, got city issues, which tend to dominate this program's news if we're dealing with local stuff. We got national and international topics. There's only so much I can stay up with. So you can be upset that I'm not into the details and intricacies of Claremont County politics.
I just wanted to come and clear the record.
But if the GOP was straightforward and without a criticism, then painting the office and glad handing and getting to know people and doing a little butt kiss, and that's what politicians do. And to the extent he ingratiated himself to this group, and you passed on that, it stands to reason that they would endorse the guy who ingratiated himself, even if it was just because he painted the building. That's what politicians do, which is one of the reasons why I'll never run for office. I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah.
See? I mean, so that's
absolutely
part of the, that's part of the thing. That's the dance you got to do.
So I just wanted to paint the picture. You said I'm not very capable, but I want to make clear that I'm up against 2 big things here. I'm against 2 politicians. One's backed by Columbus and one backed by Claremont County. And Claremont County is under investigation by the FBI and deemed highly corrupt, and I'm up against that, and that's Joe Dills and the endorsed candidate.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, it's kind of an indictment on the residents of Claremont County, isn't it, if their own party is dominated by these folks?
If you go through Claremont County right now, there's a billboard on 32 of David Uebel's mugshot. There's a big movement right now in Claremont County. There's a lot of corruption, a lot of crookedness. This isn't just this election cycle. It's been going on for years. I mentioned it was in 2018 that Linda Fraley bought her way onto the slate card. There's been corrupt things going on for years. We mentioned before the show, Chris Hicks, the watchdog in Claremont County. He's kind of made a name for himself as exposing corruption in Claremont County. He was actually, David Uebel, speaking to him, David Uebel was the one that kicked Mr. Hicks out of a meeting in which Mr. Hicks was able to sue for a First Amendment rights violation. And that was a few years ago, and that's what started this whole debacle with corruption in the Claremont County GOP. And it's just, we've continued to flip rocks and flip rocks and flip rocks, and we found thing after thing. And now you got John Becker coming clean and speaking with the FBI about bribes. $50,000 bribe that Greg Simpson, who is the current sitting party chair of the Claremont County Republican Party, made a $50,000 bribe in exchange for an endorsement to a sitting representative. And that representative has came forward and spoke to Channel 12 in an interview about this in the last month.
All right, well, we'll talk about you and why you are a better candidate than Joe Dills
Absolutely.
or Gene Schmidt, rather than focus on corruption in Claremont County. After I mentioned Jaco Waterford in studio, someone who has been impacted by that. Dillon Blevins, he'd like your vote for state representative for the 65th District. This is one unbelievably contentious race, and I asked him off air. I'm concerned and have been, and maybe he's alleviated some of these concerns. I'm not a Claremont County voter, and I can't test the water in Claremont County. I said, Dillon, aren't you concerned that you and Joe are going to sort of split the vote, and that will ensure Gene Schmidt a victory? Your response, Dillon?
My response was that I don't believe so. I've been knocking on doors in Claremont County for 6 months and talking to constituents, and I don't run. There's probably a small 10% of people who are going to vote for Gene Schmidt no matter what. Don't matter what kind of corruption she runs into. But for the most part, I see this race as a race between me and Joe. The two new bloods, the two people who haven't been, named the most corrupt member of Congress, and that's based on my experience from knocking door to door and talking to people. I don't find much support for Gene Schmidt out there.
All right, well, that's comforting. I mean, from my personal standpoint, again, I'm entitled to my subjective opinion. That's kind of where I come down, just given her background, and that I do take comfort in that. So I want to ask you this because Denise had a question. You had mentioned earlier that you're interested in passing gun legislation, and that kind of got on her right. Like, whoa, what kind of gun legislation do you want to pass? Now, let me qualify this by pointing out, as you mentioned the last time you were here, you are a certified firearms instructor. You are a pro Second Amendment guy. So you're not out there wanting to take away our rights.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very pro-gun. What I mean that I'm going to pass House Bill 308, Stand Your Ground, sponsored by Candace Keller. That's a great law that we need to get passed. And also House Bill 201, Constitutional Carry. These are House bills that have been introduced. They won't take them up for a vote. It's embarrassing that we have a Republican majority in the House, the Senate, and we have a Republican governor, and we're talking about red flag laws. Are you kidding me? It's embarrassing. So we need to get more, I'd say more deplorables. Get me a deplorable up in the House who will fight for you, who will be uncompromising for these types of issues.
Fair enough. And you mentioned earlier, and this has been an ongoing issue for a couple of decades, school funding issues. We have gone through this period of time. Nobody has done anything in Columbus to change the dynamic. I will express optimism and hope for you that you can, but what specifically would you do to change the school funding? And how would you, if you had your way and could wave the wand, in what way would you transform
If I had my way and could wave the wand, we'd repeal House Bill 920. Obviously that was its funding methods were deemed unconstitutional in 96. Nothing has been done since then. What seems to be most likely, and it's been talked about by Larry Householder, is in 2021, they'll put Cupp-Patterson back up for a vote and try to approve it into the new budget. And Cupp-Patterson would completely change the funding methods. Now, there's issues with Cupp-Patterson as is right now. It would create, there's some issues with creating new monies for certain schools. So they need to fix some of the algorithms, I guess. So that's going to be a hot topic in the House in 2021. So you definitely want to have somebody who's not bought by Larry Householder and Gene Schmidt up there fighting for your educational reform funding methods.
You have certainly distinguished yourself from them, so I think I give you kudos for an admirable job on that. Dillon Blevins, great having you in the studio today. That's what Equal Time's all about, and that's why we offer the opportunity for you to set the record straight.
I appreciate it, Brian.
Happy to do it, Dillon. I didn't mean to get you on your bad side. Again, I enter into the world of subjective.
We just don't want to see Mean Gene as our representative.
There you go.
And I get it.
That's where I'm going.
I'm on that team, too.
All right.
I hope you understand.
All right. Well, then we have found a point of unified agreement between you and Joe and me. Claremont County voters, it's now up to you. Draw your conclusions, do your research, and make an educated and informed decision. How's that?
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Perfect, Dillon.